It's now Joel Griffith, research fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Institute for Economic Freedom and Opportunity, and Nell Abernathy, vice president of strategy and policy at the Roosevelt Institute. It's good to see you both. Now, when I see Bernie leading in places, why do I still get, I don't know, for some reason I raise an eyebrow, and it just seems crazy to me. I guess that's just from, I guess it's okay boomer, but he's a boomer too, but he's a socialist. Why is he leading the race for the Democratic nomination? No.
I think average Americans know what economists have been figuring out over the last decade, which is actually we need much more public spending and public investment in order to grow the economy. This is a problem right now that we have very little productive investment. And the kinds of plans we're talking about, investing in children, investing in healthcare, adapting to climate change, these are the kinds of long-term investments that set us up to be successful in the 21st century. You mentioned, or your previous guest mentioned, the spending is similar to what we did in World War II. And I would say that spending laid the foundation for success in the 20th century. Now we need to be successful in the 21st century.
Sorry, say again.
That's a lot of spending, Joel. If you take each one and by itself, it's a lot of spending.
Oh, if you add up all the proposals on the left, including the Bernie Sanders Medicaid for All plan, you're looking at $47 to $92 trillion of spending over that 10 years. There's just simply no way that taxes on the wealthy can do that. The Heritage Foundation did a study and looked at what would happen if you confiscated every single dollar from those that earn $200,000 and above. Every dollar from them, starting from dollar number one. It raises $32 trillion over 10 years. And of course, it wouldn't be feasible because you would absolutely drive the economy to the ground. But that would only pay for a fraction of that $92 trillion in spending. The secret is, and I think the secret's starting to get out, is if you want the European-style welfare state, you're going to have the European-style tax program. And I don't think people yet recognize what that looks like. But if you go to France, the payroll taxes are 50-something%. If you make $100,000 per year in France, you're going to pay about $52,000 a year in taxes compared to just $35,000 a year. And for the lower middle class, it's a much higher rate there as well. $40,000 a year in Europe, you're going to pay about $6,000 more per taxes per year than you pay in the U.S.
Now, interesting piece in the Journal. It's an op-ed piece, but American Carnage Revisited, and they just have quotes from Biden, Warren, Sanders, Steyer, Klobuchar about the state of the country, state of the economy. Anyway, the final paragraph is, the party out of power has to make the case for change. But the challenge for Democrats pitching carnage will be persuading Americans that they shouldn't believe the economy that they see all around them with their own eyes. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think that we have a sense that the economy is doing well because stock markets are high, but average Americans aren't necessarily feeling that same buoyancy. You know, I think about 50% of Americans don't even own stock or have a stake in the stock market.
Okay.
And wages are not.
There's the unemployment rate. There's the wage gains, 3.9%.
The wage gains
people
for the
coming off welfare, off disability.
For the first time in a decade, the wage gains of the bottom 50% are twice the wage gains of the top 1%. Now, it's not to say we don't have an inequality problem, but directionally, we are going the other way right now.
Yes, and I know the stock market doesn't benefit everyone, but when there's a stock market crash, you tell me what the rest of the economy looks like when the stock market is forecasting those type of economic conditions. It's just not logical
What we're
to
not
say
seeing,
that.
though, are the investments in our...
This is not just about the stock market, although those of us with retirement accounts are happy. This is about the average family seeing a real increase in their standard of living. If you go back 20 years now, go back to 1990, go back 30 years, the real average household income has increased in the double digits for the typical family. And that's because of our system. We've actually have record amounts of capital investment. We have record high household income, near record low unemployment. And it's because of our free market system. If we want the European welfare state, well, look at how the average family is doing in Germany, for instance. Our average disposable income in this country, that's after-tax income, is $11,000 higher per family on average. we're doing well. We're doing better. And it's because of our free market system that a lot of the candidates on the left are promising to dismantle.
But there is overlap between the Bernie voters and the Trump voters. We forget that. But there was quite a bit of overlap between those two voters. And some voters were going to vote for one or the other. And a lot of that is because, yes, the economy is doing well, but there are a lot of people that have been left behind by housing, education, and healthcare costs. So how do you address those? Because that, I think, is what is helping Bernie, is to address those problems that many Americans are really stressed over.
Particularly with healthcare at the top of the list.
Exactly.
And that's exactly right. I think that the Democratic candidates would likely welcome a debate over who the economy is serving and whether or not we're doing as well as we should. Directionally, the trend may be improving, but we're still behind on GDP output where we were before the recession. Americans, as you said, still can't pay for health care, for education, and for childcare. And significantly, these are the investments that will grow the economy in the long term. We are falling behind on the human capital investments. We are falling behind on new industries. Previous guests were talking about business preparing for decarbonization, and I think the country needs to do that as well.
For only $30 trillion to tackle the 0.04% CO2 in the air.
And it just so happens that those three sectors, healthcare, education, housing, those are the three sectors the federal government has an outsized imprint in, and they have caused that rampant inflation on those three sectors.